Test.
I also want to work on.
Welcome to Ecclesiastes. It's been about a month. I think Eitan last taught around December 17th or something like that. Anyway, it's been a little while. So we're going to review a little bit, and then we'll jump back into where we left off, and we'll continue working through Ecclesiastes. The goal is to finish by, April, May. If we get done a little bit early, then so be it. If we get done a little bit late, that's not possible. We have to finish it. So we may have to just push through, but we'll get done before the summer break, whenever that is. I don't even really know, but we'll see how it all plays out. We're on chapter 5, so we'll read through chapter 4, verse 1 through chapter 5, verse 7. Now let's get into a little bit of the next section too. How about we do 5:10? Verse 10 is probably clearly the beginning of the next section, but there's some discussion concerning the structure of Ecclesiastes through this section. The ESV, you can see here, has verse 8 as being the dividing mark between 7 and 8. Does anybody's Bible divide that a little differently? Some will make the break between verses 9 and 10. So verses 8 and 9 are a bit of a big question mark, and there's a fair amount of disagreement what section that goes with. Does it go with the previous section or the latter section? So we'll kind of remember what chapter 4 is about and then bridge into the next section. That would be verses 10 and following. That's clearly a new section, and we'll learn through this. Could I get 3 volunteers to read? Ben, could you do chapter 4, verses 1 through 12? 1 through 12. 1 through 10? Chapter 4, verses 1 through 10. Another volunteer to read. There's about 10-ish verses. Yes, Micah. So chapter 4, verse 11 through the end of the chapter. And then the last section, chapter 5, 1 through 10. Yes, Toby. All right, let's read God's word, then we will pray, and we'll jump into this. Chapter 4, verse 1.
Again I saw all the oppressions that are done under the sun, and behold, the tears of the oppressed, and they had no one to comfort them. On the side of their oppressors they were cowed, and there was no one to comfort them. And I thought the dead who were already dead more fortunate than the living who are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been, and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. And I saw that all the toil and all skill and work came from a man envying his neighbor is also vanity and distraction.
Oops.
Why should God be angry at your excuse and destroy the work of your hands? For in the multitude of dreams and many words there is also vanity. But fear God. If you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter, for high official watches over high official, and higher officials are over them. Moreover, the profit of the land is for all. Even the king is served in the field. He who loves silver will not be satisfied with silver, nor he who loves abundance with increase. This also is vanity.
Vanity. There we go. That's a nice way to end. Let's pray. Lord, I thank you for this time we can get into your word. I pray that um, we would have sharp minds to understand the truths that this passage is teaching. Give us eyes to see, ears to hear, and a heart to know. I pray that we would not be like the fool that is going to the temple, but that we would be wise. Give us wisdom, we ask. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so what did we have going on in chapter 4? What do we remember from chapter 4? I know it was a month ago. I don't expect you to actually remember a whole lot, but I want you to read through it a little bit and just remember from where we have come. All right, what was going on in chapter 4? What's that? I know you could answer something, but I want you to wait. I want them just to read through it. I mean, it's been a month, so I didn't expect a whole lot, but you need to get a little bit of familiarity with chapter 4 before we just dive right into chapter 5, so you can read through it yourselves a little bit, become a little bit more familiar with chapter 4. So let's just spend a minute just reading through chapter 4 and remembering some of the things that are there. How many were not even, I mean, it was getting into December, we were gone. How many, there weren't that many people here. How many were not even here? Yeah, it was like a quarter of them that weren't here, so that's okay. You can read through it and get a little more familiar with it before we jump in. So I'm going to set my timer for a minute, read through chapter 4 a little bit, and we'll brush up. Time's up. Okay, let's share some things. What did we read and see? Yes. Yeah, there are 4 sections. Okay, and what was the key word that you mentioned? Better. Okay, remember we had a series of better than Proverbs. Okay, so we had these 4 sections. What was the first thing that was better than? I'm here to warm your heart. What's better than in the first section? Not being born. Yeah, good luck, right? Okay, you're here, so you were born, so evidently that's a pretty tough one to fulfill. Okay, and then we have our verb of observation. Then I saw all the toils. There's some kind of a transition there, so good. And then we have the second better than. What is the second better than? Yes. Yeah, toil and striving after the wind. Okay, good. So that's the second better than. Then what do we see in verse 7? Again, I What's the verb? It's a verb of observation. Okay, so I wasn't here, so I didn't mark my whole Bible thing up here, but you have your verbs of observation helping you out. That only lasts so long, though. So what's our next better than? Two are better than one. So we have in verse 9, two are better than one. You're familiar with the threefold cord. What's up with the threefold cord that is not quickly broken in verse 12? How is the threefold cord often applied? Come on, yes. To marriage. We're familiar with that verse. In fact, there's even some, you know how people have like the sand, where they'll have various different metaphors, the candles and lighting them and all of these different things. I don't ever see the cord one, but that's kind of one of them too, where you have the guy, the girl, and God. It's like the threefold cord, okay? Is that what this passage is talking about? No, it's not. What is this passage talking about with the threefold cord? The more the merrier. You know, if you got a bad dude, then, you know, 2 against 1, you got a good chance. But hey, if we got 3, that's even better, right? Okay, so the more the merrier. Now, could there be maybe an indirect application then to the whole marriage kind of metaphor? Well, yeah, but I mean, just remember that the third's God and not some other woman, and 1 guy and 2 girls is kind of a miss. 3, you know, just if, anyway. Okay, so then we have the last better than, and what is the last one? This is probably the most difficult one, but what is the last one? Poor and wise youth. Okay, so now then we've gotten a little bit of context. We've worked through chapter 4 a little bit, and that then sets us up for chapter 5, and then our section here in 5, 1 through 7. Yeah?
One thing to add on chapter 4
Yeah.
is he goes through and he destroys the thinking of all the things that would motivate you. So
Ki-
in the first section of, and this might be just me looking at things, but in the first few verses, it's the humanitarian motivation. So I'm motivated to do what I
So you said at the beginning the 3 things or something that what? The different things that motivate you. So the humanitarian. Yes. And it'll destroy you.
I'm motivated to do good,
Yes.
do right, because I see the oppressed.
Yes.
I want to help people.
Right.
And he's showing, nope, that's just futile. And
That's just futile.
the next section, the next 4 to 6,
How is that just futile? Are we even okay with that?
God has to be what motivates you.
Okay, God's what has to motivate you. What's wrong with being motivated with the destruction of the oppressor? What's wrong with that? And then how do we even handle the verse 3? Better than both is he who has not yet been and has not seen the evil deeds that are done under the sun. You know? And his better than proverb is to never exist. Okay? Jason? Okay.
That seems to be his point. But you've been better off not. Without, especially like in a godless, if you're going to think in a godless term,
Yes.
without fearing God, without having something external of yourself, then being humanitarian isn't worth it.
It's not going to work. What's he saying about the eradication of oppression there, even in verse 3? If you want to get rid of oppression, what do you have to do? If you want to remove oppression from the land, what do you have to do? What's the better than Proverbs say? Huh? You have to have not seen it to begin with, and that's not possible because you're alive. Does that make sense? So what is he ultimately saying about the eradication of oppression? It can't be done. And so that's just what I wanted to highlight too. Yeah, you can pursue this, but if you're pursuing it as like an end all, then guess what? It'll destroy you because you're never going to eradicate oppression from the earth. It's impossible. Which is why I think Solomon still wrote the book, because I think he could have even been one who tried And guess what he found out? He couldn't. Because you take down one oppressive ruler and then you install somebody else, and guess who that person ends up being? An oppressor. Okay, go ahead and keep going through them. This was good.
And then 4 to 6 is envy.
Yes.
Envy is your motivation.
Yep.
Then that's also going to fail.
Yeah.
7 and 8, you can make an argument that motivation is by greed.
Yes.
And then
Greed.
9 to 12 shows a little bit of a twist there that it is beneficial if things are shared.
Uh-huh.
That's a little bit of a twist.
Life is designed to be lived with community. The solitary person does not understand the way that God made them. You should live in community. Okay? Good. In the last section?
Seeking your own.
Is this your outline or is she getting this from somebody else? Okay.
Seeking your own fame.
Your own fame. Okay. All right. Excellent. Very good. I'm not sure about the last one, but I don't want to get in that section because we could get waylaid there. And this section's very difficult, figuring out who the he's are and whatever else. So, chapter 5. We have a rudimentary understanding of chapter 4. Okay, now let's get into chapter 5. We're basically just focusing on the first 7 verses. The first 7 verses of chapter 5 tonight. Let's make some observations. Read through that section by yourself again and again and again. I'm going to set the timer for a minute. Okay, time's up. What are some things that we saw? Yes?
So I have 2 observations. The first is there's another better than.
There is. There's another better than. Oh. Okay. How many of your translations don't have a better than? Does anybody have a translation that does not have a better than in verse 1? Everybody's translation has a better than? I thought there were some that didn't. What does the CSB do? Better to. Okay. It's got a better, but not a better than. Louder? Yeah, can you read the New Living for us?
As you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Be able to make wine house offerings to God.
I love it. Keep your ears open and your mouth shut. Okay. Yeah, so the construction of the better than is not as clear as the previous ones. Usually you have good and then a comparative particle in the Hebrew. And you don't have the good and the comparative particle here. You only have the comparative particle, and some people take it differently. All right? So not all agree. Some translate it like an instead of or rather than, as opposed to a better than. But this gets into the question, what is the connection of chapter 5, verse 1 to the previous section? If there is like a better than connection. All right, I think I saw somebody's hand over here. No? Okay, right here.
The first 3 verses kind of talking about how someone could do the steps like sacrificing or
Going through the motions.
without understanding.
Yes, and I want to explore that, and I want us to reflect upon that. Okay? So, verses 1 through 3. One of the things we want to talk about, too, is the structure. And so Ben made a statement basically about the structure of the text, that 1 through 3 is a unit. And that's something that we can discuss as well. I'm going to put a line in there for right now. The ESV thinks there's this division there too. So we'll think through just what's going on as we structure through it. So did you have something else?
I was just going to say, it kind of reminds me about part Isaiah, where it's talking about Israel and how God
Yeah.
their sacrifice.
Yeah. Okay, these futile sacrifices. Isaiah talks about them all the time. Yeah, very good. Isaiah chapter 1. Good. Okay. Toby. Oh, you had a second, didn't you? I'll come back to you next. Toby.
In the New King James, it has verse 1 and verse 2 structured differently. 2, 3, 4, and 5 are all in almost on an indentation.
I love it. Okay, so the New King James structures verse 1 differently,
And verse 6.
and then it breaks verse 6 out differently. What does it do with 7? Is 6 and 7 together?
They are.
Yeah. So it kind of puts 2 through 5 together. Is that correct?
Right.
Good. So NKJV has 2 through 5. Does it put chapter 5, verse 1 with chapter 4?
Yes.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Good deal. All right. Eitan, you had a second one?
It might play into the structure, but there's repetition in verse 3 and verse 7. For when a dream comes with much busyness, fools voice too many words. And sort of the same thing in 7. Dreams increase, words go over many, there's vanity.
Okay, so Ethan's mentioning a duplication here of dreams. So we have the dreams in verse 3. I need another color, right? It's kind of odd how I always pick the same colors again and again and again. And then in verse 7, right? Good observation. We need to think through these whole things with dreams. We need to talk about dreams. Isn't this interesting? The Bible talking about dreams. Dream theology. A biblical theology of dreaming in dreams. Wouldn't that be nice? Have your dad do that in his next biblical theology study. Did you have something? What do you have?
I noticed that verses 1 through 6 all have commands in them.
Commands. So verses 1 through 6 all have commands. It's actually one of our big observations in this section. Where do you see commands in the previous section? You don't. This one's kind of, some of these are a little bit different, but he's making specific exhortations. Let your words be few. Look at that, man. You know, I mean, there's so many applications here to think through this. This is good. Come on, Amos, stick with me, man. We got together earlier today. He's like, I'm going to fall asleep tonight. I'm so tired. Micah.
I also noticed that in verse 7, there's another command, but fear God.
Yes. And in the Hebrew, that one, but God is the one you must fear. How many of your translations make it an imperative? Yours does? CSB does. Interesting. I don't think it is in the Hebrew. Actually, yeah, it is. It is an imperative in the Hebrew. There are some other ones. I'm not going to mark them all down. Kind of interesting to note, too, that not all of the commands are, a lot of them are negatives. Do not do this. Do this, don't do that. There's even some contrasting going on there. You can make some observations about. Okay, good. Other observations?
I'm sure that I'm supposed to understand, but I don't understand the connection between God being in heaven, us on earth, and so we shouldn't say much.
Yeah,
Get the connection there. I probably should.
that's okay. Yeah. Okay, we can go through that now. Let's talk about that. So in verse 2, be not rash with your mouth, and let your heart nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. For God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore let your words be few. Okay, what do we think about that? You know, and plus, what are some of the implications of that statement? Let your words be few. Okay, so what do we think about it first? And then let's try to think through some of the implications here. And this might even lead to some application in how we approach the Lord. Okay, God is in heaven and you are on earth. Yes, Lindsay. Yeah, so it says frequently in the book of Proverbs, where words increase, so also does sin. And furthermore, with the multiplication of words, who is that usually associated with? Fools. Okay, and what is this text even doing? What is it saying? What is it saying about the fools? What do they do? Yeah, they don't shut up. They just keep going. Does that make sense? Okay, so what do we think about this idea of let your words be few? And then you do have this connective particle conjunction, therefore. So there is some kind of a correlation between God is in heaven and you are on earth. Therefore, all right? So talk to me about that. Jay. Yeah, we need to talk about the fools being ignorant of what they're doing. We need to talk about that some more. Keep going.
And so, with that mindset here, essentially, putting up that God's in heaven, you're on earth. If you keep the theme of ignorance, God understands everything. You only have a very small picture of it.
Okay.
So, what do you actually know?
What do you actually know? Okay, good. Good. I like this. I like this. When it says, you know, God is in heaven and you are on earth. What is he doing when he makes a statement like that? Jay's kind of hitting on the idea. God's in heaven and you're on earth. What attribute of God maybe? What were you going to say? It doesn't have to be an attribute. That was just, I was trying to give more information because nobody was raising their hand.
It seems almost like an escalated version of if I make a fool of myself in front of my daughter, it's one thing. But if I make a fool of myself in front of the CEO of a company, that's a big deal.
Hey! There you go. All right. Yeah, I think that's good. You're getting the idea. What attribute of God is this kind of highlighting? Maybe not it's even an attribute, it's just a characteristic of God. Do you have? Yeah, it's his transcendence. It's highlighting the transcendence of God. And then in highlighting the transcendence of God, what is it saying about you and I? You're really not that important, friend. We don't really care to listen to you. You really don't have a whole lot of good to say. You should just shut up. Okay? I mean, it's really kind of humiliating and humbling, but God is God. And too often, we like to think of the New Testament God, Jesus, as being us. So there's these two tensions that you see throughout church history, the transcendence of God and the immanence. Immanence means the closeness of God. And the mystery of God is that he is transcendent and he is in heaven. We are on earth. And the mystery is that we can somehow be close. Does that make sense? Like, it should just kind of leave you a little bit in awe. Yes, Al.
Jump back a few books to Job at the very beginning.
Yeah.
Chapter 1, you have interchange between God and Satan and his team,
Yes.
and they talked about what was going to happen to Job.
Yes.
And then it happened, and then Job and his friends spend how much time trying to figure out what happened.
Right. The transcendence of God, and they don't know. That's good. Okay, now what do we think about? Let's think a little more practically here. Let your words be few. Where are times and places where we just kind of talk a lot, particularly when it comes to maybe things related to God? Come on. public prayer. Okay, and this is one of the things that Jesus specifically addressed in, I think it was Matthew 6, where the Pharisees would multiply their words in public prayer. And it's like, oh man, you ever just want to kind of tap somebody, on the shoulder and just say, just wrap it up, friend, it's over. And this passage has been impressionable to me, just because when I'm praying, and even when I'm privately praying, as I'm praying and even preparing for this, it's like God knows what I need. How many words do I really need to go through? We've been doing family Bible study through the book of Matthew, and we slowed down big time for the Sermon on the Mount. I think we've spent like 5 sessions already on the Sermon on the Mount, and we're not halfway through it. But the last section was actually the model prayer in Matthew 6, where Jesus prays. And do you know how long that thing is? Oh my goodness, if we prayed that every single service, it would just take forever, It's things like 6 lines long. There's nothing to it. So I think that this passage is saying something to us and what to think about when it comes to praying. So have a plan when you're going to pray, and then say what you have to say, and then shut up. Okay? I think that's something applicable. Let's think of some other applications. What else? By the way, Jesus goes up on a mountain and prays for what seems to be like a long time. So we need to, realize that there is a time and a place to spend fervent time in prayer for a long period of time. But we need to take this passage into account as well. Okay? Yeah.
This is a silly question, but I don't know. I kind of stuck on the concept of few words. Is it just like the less
Let your words be few. Yeah.
better, or is it the quality of the word, the motivation behind the word?
Yeah, all of those. Yeah, so, if you think through even the prayers, we want our prayers to be spontaneous. How many of you have ever done any like Puritan prayer reading or any of that? I've got like maybe 6, 7 hands. So there's a little book called Valley of Vision. It's not a book to read, it's a book to pray. And they were very intentional about the words that they would use, and it engages the mind. And so I would read a prayer every once in a while, one of these prayers, because it helps me to focus my prayers and be more intentional about what I'm saying. And so I think that can be profitable. Now, you can flip into a ditch where then your prayer can just end up being these rote things at somebody else's prayer, and it's very impersonal. And so you have to be mindful of that concern. Okay, but the idea that you can actually craft a prayer that has rhyme or that has some kind of literary poetic devices like a metaphor, and that is actually a more careful selection of words that communicates more truth, I think has a place, and this passage is supporting that. Fun stuff, okay? See how practical we're getting? And there's several other practical things in this passage that we haven't even touched on yet, and I've got other people raising hands. Micah? Are the 3 commands what?
In verse 2, all connected, because they all seem to be hitting on different aspects. Be not rash,
Be not rash with your mouth. Let your heart be nor let your heart be hasty to utter a word before God. Okay, so those 2 lines are parallel, and so they're saying a similar thing. You have the mouth, and then you have the heart, because the heart would be then the source of the speech, and then you have the transcendence at the end. So I think that's just the connection. I don't think there's much more than that. The Hebrew breaks it out as 4 separate lines, which means they aren't sure how exactly it all connects. At least the editors that put the Hebrew Bible together, if I'm remembering correctly. Okay, what are some other ways in which our words can be few when often they're very repetitive? Okay, I've got 2 other hands over here. What's your name again? I forget. Ellie. Yeah, okay. What we talk about God and what we think we know about God. Right? Okay, that's good. That's flowing. I'd like to build on that one back into chapter 1 and some of the things that the fool are doing. What you're describing, I think, so what the fool is doing maybe in chapter 1. But let's save that. What are some other ways in which our words kind of multiply? Yeah. Okay, so the redundancies within our prayers? Good. Okay, good. Okay, Jay. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Did you have something, Lindsay? What was that? Music was the one I was really driving at too. Huh. Have you ever thought about that in our music? Particularly music that keeps saying the same phrase again and again and again and again and again and again. It's like, you ever think that God's up there thinking, I got it the first time, I'm not an idiot? Okay. Huh. Okay, so music was the other one that I really wanted to highlight. I think this is telling us something about how we approach God. Now, you might be like, but this is talking about prayer, it's not talking about music. Actually, a lot of the Psalms are prayers. And so to sing a prayer is actually very biblical. And you can just meditate upon that yourself. And that a lot of our music does kind of speak like almost a prayer, or maybe they try to. And a lot of times it's pretty banal, but anyway, let's meditate upon that. So those are some trajectories that you could write into the notes. Like, think about repetition in music and how much of my music is just repeating the chorus, how many times, or particularly some of the super charismatic stuff. I mean, I just am just like, listen, I'm done. Just stop, please. Okay, good. Let's go back to verse 1. I know we got a little bit, but I like you discovering things, and then we can kind of lay out some of the application. All right. In verse 1, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Kind of an interesting imperative, like guard. And furthermore, you guard your steps. How many of you were guarding your steps as you walked into the church today? Don't miss. Maybe if it's all icy out there and you're trying not to biff it. All right. But what does he mean by guarding your steps when you go to the house of God? And I am doing a correlation, the temple and the church. There's a little illegitimacy to that, I recognize, but we're not New Testament, or we're not Old Testament going to the temple. But guard your steps when you go to the house of God. What is he doing there? Then, when you're drawing near, that's again a motion word. To draw near to listen is better than to offer the sacrifice of fools. So, listening as opposed to offering a sacrifice of fools. And why is it a sacrifice of fools? Isn't a sacrifice is a sacrifice? Okay, so let's think through that. And then they do not know that they are doing evil. Huh? What's going on there? All right, let's think through some of this in verse 1. Yeah. That's because the verb listen has the connotation of obeying. So draw near to obey. Why else would they maybe translate it as obey? That's an interesting translation. I don't know if I like it as much. They actually aren't in the Hebrew world. In the Hebrew world, if you listened, then you did obey. This is actually good for child rearing. Your child heard you, but they didn't obey. The Hebrew would say they didn't hear you. To do the one is to do the other. Yeah, so I'm okay with that. But let's think about it a little bit more. Why else might they choose obedience? And is there any support from the context in that, particularly in verse 1? Yeah.
So it has echoes of that narrative.
Sure.
Which would have been, I would think, probably in the minds of the readers. The readers would have had access to this narrative, I would think. But, so that makes me think of that, this whole idea of going before the Lord, especially in today's concept of prayer, and going before.
Okay, don't go on to your second point yet. I want you to think through the David thing a little bit more, okay? And think through the David scenario, particularly with The CSB's, obey. What are you supposed to guard as you go into the temple? How do you guard your steps? What are steps? The way you're going. In the book of Proverbs, you have the way, the path. And what is that referring to? Your manner and conduct of life. So think through the David scenario with Saul. It wasn't David, it was just Saul and Samuel. Okay, David wasn't there yet. What was Saul concerned about? What was he not concerned about? He wasn't concerned about his actual obedience in doing what Samuel and God told him to do. He was concerned about the sacrifice. Isn't that interesting? So you have this conduct illustration, guard your steps when you go to the house of God. So when it's saying guard your steps when you go to the house of God, in what spirit's the right word, in what spiritual state should you come to the temple? Huh? What should be your spiritual state when you come to the temple? Living a specific kind of a life is what, yeah, worshipful, but more than worshipful, cleansed, clean. Think through the Sermon on the Mount. What does Jesus say? If you're at the temple and you remember that you have sinned against your brother, what are you supposed to do? Leave and do what? Make it right. It's almost like Jesus knew Ecclesiastes or something, okay? All right, so then draw near to listen, draw near in obedience, perhaps, okay? How much instruction is going on at the temple? So maybe there is a listening to obey, because that was a component. So that's where I don't know about the obey as much, because the whole point is you're there to learn and then to go out. But then you have the offering of the sacrifice of fools. Okay, last phrase I want to talk about here. They do not know that they are doing evil. What's going on there? Yeah? Yeah, they think that's the right thing to do. Okay, so, we didn't even get very far, did we? But there are some pretty significant applicational components here in this passage that I'm hoping you're kind of seeing that actually challenge a lot of our presuppositions in the Christian life and what we do. Let your words be few. I'm going to elaborate on this one, and this is how we're going to end. They do not know that they are doing evil. And we didn't even get to the vow part, and we need to deal with the vow part. And we'll handle that some more next week. Okay, I'll go faster because I really want to get into the next section too. But here we go. What does it mean they do not know that they are doing evil? They do not know that they are doing evil. So they're approaching God, and they're approaching God in their sin. They're a fool, they're multiplying their words, and they think what they're doing is right. They think what they are doing is what's right. Okay, so how many people go to church or a church? And what do? They do what they think is right. How sincere are they? Generally, when they're in that building, they're pretty sincere. They think this is the right thing to do and that they are drawing close to God through the multiplication of their words or whatever else. Now, I can apply this to other people, but I don't want to stop there. I want us to apply it to ourselves, because just like them, what are we prone to do? If there's something wrong with us, we tend to see the problem in somebody else, and we don't see the problem within our own hearts. And so what is this passage teaching us to do? Guard your steps when you go to the house of God. Come to listen and to learn and then to obey and to live it, rather than offering a sacrifice of fools. They do not know that they are doing evil. Contemplate in your own life, Lord, is there something I'm doing, and I do it again and again and again, and I don't even know that what I'm doing is wrong? That's a dangerous prayer. Because if God brings something to mind after you pray that prayer, what do you have to do? What do you have to do? What do you have to do? Say it. You have to repent. You have to ask for forgiveness. And you need to stop doing it. And that might mean something that you love needs to be taken away from you. Okay? Don't be the fool. Come to church on Sunday ready to worship with a clean and pure heart. That's what I encourage you to do from this passage. Don't be like the fool. Let your words be few and deal with it. Okay, I'm out of time. It's 7:31. I want to talk about vows. We're going to do that next week. And we'll get into the next section too. The vow thing, I had a whole pile of stuff I was going to say. And the whole dreams thing, I got to deal with that too. This is a fun section. Anyway, as you go, move forward, fear God. It's like verse 7. Fear God. It's like 2 words. Fear God. God bless you. Spend some time in prayer together. And I pray that we would be holy instruments in a good God's hands.